Welcome to the MultiCultural Mindset broadcast. Your host is Dr. Laverne Haynes Collins, a licensed professional counselor, award-winning trainer, and keynote speaker. Dr. Collins is the author of Overlooked: Counselor Insights for the Unspoken Issues in Black American Life. Dr. Collins has also been a featured monthly columnist in the American Counseling Association's Counseling Today magazine with her Honoring Diversity column. Now, here's Dr. Collins.
Hello, once again, and welcome back to the Multicultural Mindset. We are all about addressing mental health issues from a perspective that is honoring people of color and decolonizing therapy, operating out of a space of liberation counseling so that we can serve people of color with the utmost respect and the utmost cultural relevance. And today I am so happy to introduce my dear friend and sister in the person of Dr. Shanita Brown. She is a teaching associate professor at Eastern Carolina University, and she is the author of a book that is getting ready to hit the shelves entitled Healing and Thriving After Domestic Violence, a practical guide for African American women. Dr. Brown, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Dr. Laverne. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm excited about your book. I had the chance to read some of that and to provide some just some feedback. And I had to tell you, this is such a needed resource. And I believe our conversation today is going to be helpful for people who find themselves in situations with domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and those who are concerned and care about people who are affected in such a way. Um, I'm going to ask, first off, what do you know? What can you say about statistics and prevalence for these kinds of issues for women or
Yes,
Black women?
yes. So 1 in 4 women will experience some form of intimate partner violence. And
One
intimate
in
partner
four,
violence, yes, one in
one
four
fourth.
women. Yeah, right. And so we'll experience some form of intimate partner violence. And intimate partner violence is an umbrella term. And it covers domestic violence, sexual assault, sexual violence, stalking, and child abuse, right? And so for Black women, over 43% of Black women experience domestic violence, more than any other ethnicity. And that's a very high number when you think about Black women compared to our counterparts at over 43%.
43% is so
Over
close to half.
43%. Yes.
That's so close to half
Yes.
that that is
Mhm.
startling and saddening.
Yes. And it's due to a number of reasons. The role of our intersecting identities, the role of systemic oppression, the role of faith, the role of our spiritual beliefs, and it really keeps us in bondage. And so I really wanted to look at this as a Black woman myself, and as a Black woman survivor, right? I wanted to raise awareness. Yes, and it's so disheartening. It is so disheartening. Everyone knows a survivor, and everyone knows a Black woman probably that has experienced domestic violence. It is so prevalent.
Mm. That's why it was important for you to write this book, wasn't it?
Yes, it was important for me to write this book because for Black women, our stories are often untold
Mhm.
due to systemic challenges and how we show up in the world, and how, due to our intersecting identities, we experience multiple experiences of oppression. Our stories aren't told. As a counselor, I wanted to be able to shed light on this on this I would say epidemic, right, facing my
Mm,
sisters. And
mm,
even as a scholar, I wanted to raise awareness. I wanted to honor the survivors in my research story. I'm sorry, in my research study, my dissertation research, how they experienced domestic violence and were homeless. And healing deserves
mm,
a voice. And I wanted to find a way. Black women, we need more resources. I wish I
mhm,
had this resource when I experienced domestic violence in college. I didn't. And so I
mm.
wanted to create a resource that spoke directly to us. It's a love letter, and it's also a guidebook for us to say, yes, I see you, sis. There is definitely life, and you can thrive after abuse.
I love it. And your book doesn't just focus on healing, but on
No.
thriving.
Yes, absolutely.
So, what
Yes.
does that look like for a Black woman after surviving domestic violence?
Yes, thriving for Black women, I would say, is coming back home to yourself.
Mm,
Being able to rediscover and feel safe in your body, feel safe in your community, being able to make your own choices, setting boundaries, learning how to say no, knowing that healing is ongoing, and that you're gonna fail forward, right? And that you're out here in this world, you're doing things that just makes you feel good, and it feels good to thrive after abuse. And I can say that personally as a survivor, it feels good to make my own choices. I've worked with many clients, and I still practice, and I still have a small caseload of all Black women survivors, and it is so rewarding to hear them say, "Dr. Brown, I made it through this. Thank you for your assistance." And I say, "You did the work. You showed up. You scheduled your appointments. You called when you couldn't make the appointment." That's what thriving looks like, and saying that I deserve this. I deserve healing. My voice matters. What matters to me is
mm.
most important.
That is an existential, like rebirth kind of thing, isn't it, for a woman?
Yes. It don't make me cry, but yeah, it is.
Yeah, yeah. This
Woo!
is
Yeah, I
this
didn't know that would touch
is
me, but it is.
yes, yes, a rebirth of meaning in life, a rebirth of purpose and possibility when a
Yes,
woman comes out.
possibility and reconnecting with your spiritual identity, reconnecting with your
Mm,
faith. So many of us are we have we realize we are spiritual beings, right? And depending on what you experience, and depending on if you sought assistance from a pastor or an elder or someone, sometimes our own spiritual beliefs that can dampen us, and it can make us withdraw from the church. And so thriving means, okay, I'm going to look at how can I strengthen my identity with God, strengthen my faith in who I am. So it is a rebirth. Thank you. And that really touched me, because that's what it feels like, being able to say, okay, I'm not perfect. Perfection doesn't exist, right? But I know enough. I'm in a space where I've healed enough. I know red flags, I know green flags, and I'm able to point that out and be able to move forward. I won't always get it right. I mean, if I don't get it right, I won't judge myself. I practice self-compassion and utilizing all the tools in therapy. Yeah.
being a good steward of grace, not just
Yeah.
giving it to somebody else, but giving it to yourself.
Absolutely giving it to myself every
Giving
day.
it to
Yes.
yourself. Yeah, yeah. And everything we're talking about, it speaks to the fact that domestic violence leaves more than just physical scars, right?
Oh, invisible wounds.
Mind, body, spirit, invisible wounds. Yeah. And your book helps readers understand and begin to heal multi-dimensionally, biopsychosocial, spiritual. How
Yes.
does your book do that? Talk about that. It's
Well,
amazing what
yes,
you do.
I spent some time talking about invisible wounds, and I would say that was my hardest chapter. Because the book was therapeutic for me. It was a form of healing, but having to relive the invisible wounds and helping readers understand how trauma impacts your nervous system, and that you're not alone, that you're not we. Helping them really break down and using that chapter in very everyday language to help them understand that you are freezing sometimes, and if you're fighting back, that doesn't mean that you are contributing to the abuse. That means you are surviving. And that is a hard concept for many survivors to understand, that if I fought back, I somehow contributed to the abuse. No, you were surviving. And
That's
so in that chapter, really helping them understand the brain, disassociation, trauma bonding, the fawn response, and the fight response, and helping them understand how trauma shows up in your relationships, and the most important relationship is the one with yourself, how it changed your belief system. That belief system, we don't talk a lot about how trauma changes your belief system and how you think about yourself. It was my fault. I am not good enough. I am not worthy.
it's powerful work that you're doing. I know you've had a passion for this, as you've already stated, in part because of your own lived reality, your own experiences.
Yeah.
But I think it's so awesome that you are bringing together your academic knowledge, your professional knowledge with the heartfelt emotion that comes with coming through,
Yeah.
coming out.
Absolutely.
That's
Yes.
powerful. That's
Yes.
powerful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, you integrate spirituality and community and culture
Yeah.
into the healing process. And that's something I'm really big on is we have to see people in context. So we address culturally,
Right.
if we're doing things well, we're addressing culturally what is sometimes poo-pooed or treated as inadequate or
Right.
deficient.
Hmm.
Um, Even when you think of, as you said, the way we have often been taught to think about victimization is that if we don't pray through it or stick with it or tough it out, and if we don't present ourselves as meek, but not in God's way. If we God has a meaning for meekness, but that ain't it. But and I hate that so often things like scripture are misused. In
Yeah.
fact, I have a webinar coming up on that very topic.
I saw that.
Um, but yeah, but you integrate all of that with such integrity,
Yeah. Thank you.
spiritually, culture, all of that into the healing process. Now, when we think about this, and a lot of the spiritual abuse
Mhm.
that happens is because, unfortunately, spiritual concepts are misrepresented, they're misinterpreted.
Unfortunately,
Um,
I agree. Right.
yes, and women find themselves being re-traumatized when they could get assistance in a different way. So, what's your advice around how churches and community and friends can better support Black women in their journey?
Yes. Oh gosh. For one, we know healing can't happen in isolation, right? We
Right.
heal in community and we need the faith community. So they can start out by just believing us.
Oh, my goodness. Not invalidating and questioning your reality. And did he really mean this? I didn't really say that. And does God really? All that, right?
Believe us. Believe us when we're coming to tell you about our experiences, or believe survivors when they're telling you about someone in the church that is harming them or harming their children.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes we are re-victimized. What did you
Mm-hmm.
do?
See,
And then we
yeah.
internalize that perhaps I'm not, or you just need to pray and stay, right? And
Mm.
so we need to be mindful of the scriptures that we
Mm-hmm.
utilize
Mm-hmm.
to Black women. We need to offer scriptures for empowerment, like using
Yes,
scripture to empower you and to also just call it out. It's wrong. It is
exactly.
wrong. Just call it is wrong. Abuse doesn't align with God. I can tell you so many of my clients who have sought assistance from pastors and said, I'm saying to them, what would you like the pastor to say? I want them to say that he is wrong.
It's wrong. And they won't give it.
They
I've
don't,
I've
they
I've
won't
heard
give
the
that.
same things.
And that's
I've
and
heard the
that's why
same
I
things.
provided some tips for Black women if you are considering, seeking assistance from a pastor or a faith leader. Here's some things to keep in mind. What are you hearing your pastor say?
Mm,
I'm not saying
mm-hmm,
don't go, but I'm saying keep in mind
mm-hmm,
it's very well possible you may get re-victimized. So
mm-hmm,
have it in the back of your mind. What have you heard him say in the pulpit?
mm-hmm. Mm. And what are you looking for? What are you
Yes.
listening for?
What are you looking for, right? What are you looking for? So it is important for the faith community to offer a non-judgmental space for Black women survivors to heal. As I
Mhm.
said before, using scriptures for empowerment, right?
Yeah.
Being able to refer survivors, being able to refer us to agencies and therapists who do this work and counselors who
Mm-hmm,
understand the Black woman experience.
mm-hmm,
Unless you have
mm-hmm.
training in domestic violence, this is not your wheelhouse.
Okay. All right.
That's
Yes.
it. This is not
Yes.
your wheelhouse. They don't offer domestic violence courses in divinity schools. I know that. I know that. Some are more progressive now, and they're having gender sexuality courses in divinity schools, but majority of them don't.
Yeah. And I also, what I would suggest, my thought is, especially if you are if you're sharing a faith community or if you are a spiritual leader for a woman, rather than pray that she be able to stick it out, whatever, pray for a heart of wisdom. Pray
Yes,
pray for hearts, not
yes,
actions.
yes. Oh wow, that just does something for me. It makes me think about some of the my research participants who describe how their spirituality, their relationship with Christ provided wisdom to leave, right? And so it's twofold. It can serve as a barrier, and we know that it can serve as a source of strength. We know that in our community, but it was so powerful to hear stories of women saying that God showed me that this didn't align with what my pastor was saying, so I took the steps to leave. It
And
was
that
the
takes so
relationship that God gave them wisdom. He can do that.
Yes, and it takes courage. It
It
takes
does.
courage to own the reality of what your experience is. It takes courage and a lot of support to say, I'm being abused. This relationship is abusive. Because what do? We don't want to, no one wants to see themselves as allowing that, so to
Right. So
speak.
much shame, right? Attached to it.
Shame,
And
exactly.
shame and
And it's,
stigma. Right.
yeah, and it's not that you have per se allowed it, it's that someone chose to dishonor you.
Absolutely.
Someone chose
Thank
to
you for
dishonor you
sharing that.
either, yes, either physically or verbally or spiritually or emotionally. Someone has chosen. And I don't mean to say that that person who is inflicting this abuse isn't also coming from a place of trauma and pain, because most likely they are. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you can't take care of yourself.
Right. And I appreciate you mentioning choice. Domestic violence is a choice. It is not a
Mhm,
mental illness.
mhm,
It is a choice that someone is engaging in all of these controlling tactics to control another partner, all of
mhm,
these manipulative ways, right, to
mhm,
control another partner in a
mhm,
relationship. So it
mhm.
is a choice. And I want to revisit when you say it takes courage. It takes courage to pray the prayer to God, give me
Yes,
wisdom to leave.
yes,
Why? Because we
yes.
are told that somehow I'm supposed to stay, I'm dishonoring my
My
marriage,
vows, my
honoring
marriage.
my
Yeah,
vows. And,
yeah.
how can I come to God and ask Him to give me wisdom to leave something when I'm supposed to honor and uphold my vows?
Mhm,
So it takes courage
mhm,
to pray, God,
mhm.
give me wisdom.
And you know how I often advise the women in my practice community, um, simply saying that when the violence began to take place and continued without change and repentance, whatever, you're not breaking the vow when you're the victim. They broke the vow. They
Well,
broke the promise to honor you,
mhm,
to love and cherish you. There is
mhm.
no love, honor, and cherish
Right. And
in,
so that's important. And we need churches to preach that. We
yeah,
we need those
um,
teachers in our women's when we
yeah,
have programs for Women's Day or
yeah,
even for Father's
yeah,
Day,
yeah,
right? Let's
yeah,
promote healthy manhood. Let's teach our
yeah.
men what that looks like, how you
Hmm.
honor your family. And so
Hmm.
we need to do more of that. That's how churches can support us because many women
Yes,
will seek assistance from the church and they
yes.
are wanting someone to say, this is wrong. I believe you. I'm going to pray with you, but also
Hmm.
here's some resources. We need
Some
churches to provide
resources.
resources. You can raise
Yes.
domestic violence awareness. You can do something such as Purple
Hmm.
Sunday, which I started at my church. When
Okay.
people wear purple, in support of domestic violence awareness, but many churches are doing things for Red Sunday for heart awareness.
Yes. Heart.
But why not
Hmm.
do something for domestic violence awareness? You're
Oh, that's
speaking to
good.
survivors right in your congregation. I see you.
And when you give me those statistics, 1 in 4 women overall,
Right in the church.
and Yeah, and almost five out of 10.
Hmm.
That's not just in the community. That's within the congregation too. And I don't
It
know
is.
when you think, and sometimes I'm asked to preach, or when I look out to just think every one of every four women, four and a half women in this space may be currently or at some point in her life have experienced domestic violence.
Hmm.
So that needs to be woven into everything, and not just from the standpoint of the woman or the wife or the
Hmm.
female partner or I mean, yeah, we got to speak about it, address it from the standpoint of abuse and abuser. I
Hmm.
think, would you agree?
Absolutely. We need both. We need more trauma-informed spaces. We need spaces
Mm-hmm.
where we can feel safe and supported, and
Mm-hmm.
being able to share our why and what's happening to us, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, a lot of churches just don't know. So,
Yeah.
partnering with agencies, there are many agencies willing to come into faith communities. They're waiting
Mm-hmm.
because that is such a hard community to get. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's hard to break into that space.
Mm-hmm.
I know so many advocates said, Dr. Brown, how do I get into a faith community?
Mm.
It's hard to break into that
Mm.
space.
Mm.
You have
How
agencies
do
who are willing to train faith leaders, not only
Yeah.
for your leaders, but also for youth, right? When you think about,
Mm-hmm.
because the ages of 11 to 24, those young girls and young boys are most at risk because they don't know what healthy relationship looks like. So
Yeah.
having things on Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month will be helpful for
Yeah.
your youth.
I can actually remember in high school seeing, and it might have even been junior high school. It might have even been junior high school, like, ninth, 10th grade, something like that anyway. Middle school, high school years, or that bridge in between. What I'm going to say is that I remember seeing a guy physically assault his girlfriend on the school property, on the
Mm,
school, outside the school. And I remember my heart breaking for her because he would swing, and it was like he was swinging at a boy who
mm,
called him out of his name or something. I mean, um, so I say that because we don't always expect such problems to begin so young.
right.
But I so respect, as a result of that, I so respect what you're saying about starting young with
Hmm.
teaching young women and young men
Hmm. Yeah, the
about,
earlier you start, the better. The earlier you begin
yes,
to help young boys and let them know it's okay to express their emotions.
without it being emotionally abusive or physically
Right.
abusive or
Letting young
any of
boys
that.
know it's okay to cry. You have
Yeah,
emotions. You are human.
yeah,
You don't tell
yeah.
them to man up, to suck it in.
And here's the thing. I just finished a webinar this morning. We're talking about something that you probably talk a lot about too. That's notion of toxic masculinity. But I took that took a different spin on that. In a privileged culture, toxic masculinity may be ego driven,
Hmm.
maybe based on insecurities, etc. But I think sometimes we do a disservice when we speak about toxic masculinity in African American men, because there it's not necessarily about ego. It's historically passed down intergenerationally,
Hmm.
that masculinity as a means of survival. So we
Right.
have to break through that assignment of toxic masculinity for every Black man,
Right.
because if that's what he was taught he has to do to survive, be strong, suck it up. Because if I mean, I think about, I'm a descendant of enslaved ancestors, as I've often said. Um, my great 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 grandparents didn't have the option to be weak. so to speak, as we would define weak. So he learned to be exceptionally numb to pain.
Mm.
When we talk about toxic masculinity, we have to put that in context. Now, we don't want toxicity anywhere,
Right.
but we have to add, I think if we're decolonizing, we're asking, is this behavior really toxic masculinity, or is it a learned intergenerational um, uh, survival strategy because of the intergenerational race-based trauma?
Right.
And that's where I'm going with that, is that in our communities, in our teaching, we have to not just tell guys not to abuse,
Right.
but we have to help them see that the reason why the strength was so enforced, that don't cry, rant, be a man, etc.,
Right.
is historical, it's contextual. But you
Right.
have to find safe spaces for the release of your angst and your anger, your rage, so that you
Right.
don't take it out on those who love you.
Right. Absolutely.
That's something I don't believe that we put contextually often enough. And we end up blaming men for taking on that um, strong Black image, that super masculine, Superman kind of mentality. We kind of go tisk tisk about that without looking at it in context and saying, I know you learned this for survival. And there may be times when you do have to be that way, but you also have to have a place where you can release so you do not abuse anyone with your rage.
Yeah, so I will add to that. So we learned, I know you learned this, intergenerationally. I know you learned this
Mhm.
through survival, but also, I mean, we live in a world where men are taught, all men of all races, right, are taught that
Mhm.
women are objects.
Oh, oh,
So there's a
oh,
part of this that I want to make sure I add that to this. Okay, so
I,
I
I'm with you.
learned in survival, but you're also taught because of patriarchy, right? And this system that you have to keep trying to get this woman. She's your
Mm,
property. Women are objects.
mm,
So you have
mm,
the intergenerational that's learned,
mm,
and then you have the
mm.
patriarchal world we live in, and that women are objects. So when you add that,
Yes, thank you for saying that. You're absolutely
that's
right.
unhealthy. And I use the word unhealthy manhood and healthy manhood. I'm a
Unhealthy
yeah.
men.
Unhealthy manhood and healthy. I subscribe to unhealthy manhood and healthy manhood. I'm a trainer for Call to
Okay.
Men, and we're a
Uh-huh.
violence against women international organization where we promote engaging men to end violence against our women and girls. And the work that we
Mm,
do, it's about engaging men and helping them to understand how we are born, how we are taught that women are objects. So yes, you have okay, I saw dad do this, you got to be strong, you got to be angry, you don't have safe
mm,
spaces to express your emotions, but also
mm.
this notion that, well, if a woman wants to break up with me, I got to keep trying. No, bro, you got to just let her go.
Let it
Like, she's
go.
not an object. You don't own her.
Right. Right.
The sense of
Right.
ownership.
Right.
If we could keep talking, part of this dates back to in the Bible as well.
Mm, mm. Wow. This is rich. It's dynamic. It is transformative. It is
Thank
life-changing.
you.
Everything that you put in your book. I am so happy for you. What's your release date?
I am waiting, but it's going to be in July. I'm
Okay,
waiting for my publisher. I had
July
a meeting with them last
2025.
week. It's going to July 2025. So I am almost
Okay.
there, and I'm so excited. And thank you for this experience. It was moving for me, and just to be able to talk about thriving, I need to get ready and a lot of happy tears, but this is what it's about. I want other
Yeah.
women to be free. I experienced it. I know that is going to help other women. I wanted to share my story, and I wanted to find a way to do that, to
Yeah,
inspire other Black women in our
yeah,
community, yeah, and
yeah.
families.
Thank you. Thank you for making yourself available as a vessel, as a vulnerable human being. Thank you for that. And thank you for
Thank you. Thank you
what
for
this
always
amazing
supporting
work.
me. Thank you for
Yeah.
always supporting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure because you're always doing such good stuff.
You as well. I'm learning from the blessed. I'm glad God put us together.
Yes, yes, yes,
Absolutely.
yes, yes, as am I. I'm going to put your contact information on the final slide.
Okay.
If someone wants to consult, if they need a referral, if they just want to be in touch with you
Mhm.
and get some consultations or whatever it might be, your information will be on the final slide as well as the title of your book. And you're
Okay.
taking pre-orders, and then, of course, when
Yeah,
it's on the
pre-orders be coming.
shelves.
So yeah, I have more. I'll be able to release that and probably by
Okay.
next week when pre-orders. But yes,
Okay.
make sure you use my info at Dr. Shanita Brown, that
Okay.
particular email address. And I'm so
Info at
excited,
Dr.
Laverne.
Shanita
I'm
Brown.
really, really excited.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for being here. Listen, we have to, as as counselors, as helpers, we have to make sure that our minds are renewed and are transformed and are culturally relevant, not just treating everybody the same, everything the same, because everything happens in context. And
Right.
that's what it means to have a multicultural mindset. We want to
Absolutely.
have the right context when we're working with victims of domestic violence. So thank you all for listening, for tuning in. I look forward to being back with you next
Yes,
week.
absolutely.
And
Yes.
yes, 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 yes. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Have a wonderful day. Keep practicing with inclusivity, with equity, with social justice and advocacy in mind.